Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we like to, really dig into the latest research.
Mm.
And today, it's all about corporate social responsibility. That's CSR, for those in the know.
Right. CSR.
You give us a ton of stuff to read on this, including this huge GE review article from the Journal of Management.
Yeah, it's a big one by Aguinis and Glavas. The beer.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're not just talking about, what CSR is. We're going deeper.
Exactly. It's about, why are companies doing this? Does it even work? And there's a lot we just don't know yet. So that's kind of the mission here, right?
Right.
Figure out those missing pieces and why it all matters.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So first off, why are companies even doing this whole CSR thing?
Right.
Is it all just for good PR, or is there, a strategy behind it?
Well, it's a bit of both, to be honest. Some companies are definitely feeling the pressure. They're reacting to the outside world.
So they're doing it because they have to, not because they want to.
Right. Sometimes, yeah. Think about it. Stakeholders, customers, the media, they can really push companies to act. And nobody wants bad press, right? Boycotts.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Bad publicity is bad for business.
Totally. And then you've got all these regulations, standards, certifications. Companies have to comply.
So it's kind of like do good or else.
Yeah, sometimes it feels that way.
But I'm guessing there are some companies that are truly committed to this whole CSR thing.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. A lot of companies are starting to see CSR as a real opportunity. They're aligning it with their mission, their values. It's not just an afterthought anymore.
So it's not just about checking boxes. It's about finding that genuine alignment between a company's actions and what they believe in.
Exactly. And that can lead to some really interesting outcomes, both for the companies themselves and, for the world around them.
Okay, so let's talk about outcomes. What about the bottom line? Does doing good actually affect a company's, financial performance?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? This Aguinis and Glavis review, actually, they cite two massive meta-analyses that looked into this, and the findings are pretty interesting.
Okay, look at me.
They actually found a small but positive link between CSR and financial performance.
So it's not like a, guaranteed money maker.
Right.
But it's not hurting them either.
Exactly.
What about the impact beyond, just dollars and cents?
Oh, yeah, that's where it gets really interesting. CSR can lead to all sorts of positive ripple effects. Think about better management practices, improved product quality, even greater diversity within a company. They call these impacts on internal capabilities.
Capabilities. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not just about, the company's image. It's about how they actually function.
Right. It's about making the company better from the inside out.
Okay, I'm following you. Now, what about for us, as individuals? Are there benefits to working for a company that's, known for being socially responsible?
Definitely. The research is pretty clear on this. Employees at these companies tend to be more engaged, more committed, and it also makes the company more attractive to, job seekers. Imagine aligning your own values with those of your employer.
Right, so it's not just about, the company doing good in the world. It's about creating a positive work environment for their employees, too.
Absolutely.
But here's what I'm wondering. With all this research showing the benefits of CSR, why isn't there more research? Especially on, how it all works at the individual level. What's going on in people's heads?
That is a great question. And you've hit on one of the key points that Aguinis and Glavas highlight in their review. There's a huge gap in the research at the individual level. Most studies, they focus on the big picture, organizations, institutions, but they're missing what we call the microfoundations of CSR.
Microfoundations. So we're talking about the individual building blocks of
Yeah.
CSR.
Precisely. Imagine if we could really understand the psychology behind why people engage in CSR or what kind of leadership and training make it actually work.
That would be huge.
Mm-hmm.
But if this research is missing, how do we even begin to answer those questions?
Well, that's where we need to start thinking differently about CSR research.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll discuss next. We need to start using methods that, really capture that individual perspective.
So instead of just surveys and, big data from organizations,
Right.
we need to talk to actual people.
Exactly. Things like in-depth interviews, focus groups, where you can really dig into people's personal experiences with CSR.
So we're talking about their motivations, their challenges,
Yeah.
how CSR actually impacts their like day-to-day work lives.
Exactly. It's about understanding CSR from the ground up, not just the top down.
It's not just about, you know, corporate policies.
Right.
It's about the people behind those policies.
Exactly. And that's what's so exciting about this emerging area of research, you know?
Yeah.
It has the potential to really change how we think about and approach CSR.
Speaking of approaching CSR, this Aguinis and Glavis review, they actually categorize the different reasons why companies engage in it.
Oh, yeah.
Did you find that helpful?
Incredibly useful. They break it down into two main categories. You've got your reactive motivations, and then you've got your proactive motivations.
Okay, so reactive basically means like they're doing it because they feel like they have to.
Exactly. It's all about responding to those external pressures, you know, like the
That-
stakeholders we were talking about earlier.
Right, right. They can like make demands, apply pressure.
Exactly. They can even like threaten a company's reputation if they don't see enough action on the CSR front.
So it's a way of like mitigating risk, kind of like a PR safety net.
You could say that, and then there's, you know, the whole world of regulations and standards.
Right, right. Got to check those boxes.
Sometimes it's less about genuine commitment and more about, you know, avoiding penalties or maintaining a certain image
So it's CSR as the defense mechanism.
in a way.
But then you have the proactive side,
Hmm.
where companies are engaging in CSR because they, you know, actually
they-
believe in it.
Absolutely. These companies, they're not just, you know, reacting to pressure. They're integrating CSR into their core values. It's about, you know, using it as a way to make a positive impact on the world.
So they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
Exactly.
And this proactive approach, it sounds like it could be good for business too.
It absolutely can be. The research suggests that companies with a proactive approach to CSR, they often see benefits like increased employee engagement,
Yeah.
improved customer loyalty, even, you know, a stronger brand reputation.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Companies do good and they see positive results. It's fascinating how like interconnected it all is.
It really is.
But it also makes me wonder, is there a way to tell which camp a company falls into? Like reactive or proactive?
That's a key question. I think we all should be asking that, you know, both as consumers and employees. And I think this review article gives us some clues.
Okay, like what?
Well, we can look at how a company communicates its CSR efforts.
Right. Okay, so like their messaging.
Exactly. Are they just focusing on, you know, compliance?
Yeah.
Or are they highlighting a deeper commitment to, you know, certain values?
And we can also look at their actions, right?
Absolutely.
Are they just like making surface level changes?
Right.
Or are they really trying to address, you know, systemic issues?
Yeah.
Actions speak louder than words, right?
Exactly. It's all about looking beyond the beyond the PR and getting sense of the company's true motivations.
This is all really insightful. Now, this review article, it also talks about the different outcomes of CSR.
Oh yeah.
They categorize these as either internal or external.
Right.
What does it mean exactly?
So internal outcomes are basically the effects that CSR has within a company. This could be things like boosting employee morale,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
improving workplace culture, even strengthening the company's ability to attract and retain top talent.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'm guessing external outcomes refer to a company's impact on, you know, the outside world.
You got it. Things like a company's reputation, their relationships with customers, and, you know, their impact on the environment and society at large.
So internal outcomes are about how CSR affects the people inside a company,
Right.
and external outcomes are about how it affects the world outside the company.
Precisely. And the research suggests that both types of outcomes are important.
So it's not enough for a company to just focus on like one or the other.
Right. It's about finding that balance. A company that's truly committed to CSR, they'll be paying attention to both their internal and external impact. It's about creating positive change on, you know, on multiple levels.
It sounds like there's a real depth to this whole concept of CSR, and we need to look at it from like all these different angles.
Exactly. And speaking of different angles, let's circle back to that gap in research we talked about earlier.
You mean the missing microfoundations of CSR?
Right. What do you think are some of the biggest unanswered questions when it comes to the individual experience of CSR?
For me, it's about understanding what really motivates people to engage in CSR. You know, like is it purely altruism, or are there other factors at play? And then how do those motivations impact their, you know, job satisfaction and overall well-being?
Yeah. Those are great questions. And there's also the whole question of perception. How do employees actually perceive their company's CSR efforts? Do they see them as genuine or just like a PR stunt?
Right. And how does that perception like shape their overall feelings about their job,
Uh,
the company? It feels like understanding those individual experiences could be like incredibly valuable for companies.
it really could. It could help companies, design better CSR programs, create a more engaged and purpose-driven workforce.
So we're talking about like a win-win for both the company and the employees.
Exactly.
But if this research is missing, like how do we even start to get those answers?
Well, that's where we need to get a little creative. Instead of just relying on those large-scale surveys, organizational data, we need to incorporate methods that really capture the individual perspective.
So you're talking about like in-depth interviews, focus groups, maybe even like ethnographic studies
Yeah,
where you really immerse yourself in the workplace culture.
exactly. We need to get into the minds of individuals, understand their lived experiences as CSR.
I love that. It's not just about like collecting data. It's about telling stories.
Right.
And those stories could be, incredibly powerful
Yeah.
in shaping the future of CSR.
Absolutely. They could help us understand the nuances of CSR in a way that numbers alone never could.
Before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
The idea that CSR can actually be good for business.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's not just about like doing the right thing. It can actually make financial sense.
It absolutely can. When it's done authentically, strategically, CSR can have a really positive impact on a company's bottom line. Research shows that companies that invest in CSR, they often see improvements in employee engagement, customer loyalty, even their overall financial
It's
performance.
like this virtuous cycle. Companies do good, and it comes back to them in positive ways.
It's really inspiring to think that businesses can be a force for good in the world. And it's not just about altruism. It can make good business sense, too.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into CSR, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
I hope they understand that CSR is it's more than just a buzzword or a trend. It's a fundamental shift in how businesses operate. And it has the potential to create positive change on multiple levels, within companies, in communities, for the world at large.
That's a great way to put it. And to our listeners, we want to hear from you. What stands out to you from this research? What questions are you going to take with you as you navigate this complex landscape? The answers to those questions can be really powerful. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing for a more responsible and sustainable future. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive